Right, golfers, if you want to get rid of these kind of horrible, fat, bad shots, these duffs, poor low point control where you just can't really control how the club interacts with the ground very consistently, I'm going to show you how to do that using real student data. This is real student data from the JD Golf Academy that's going to allow you to see two of the phrases that I've used with students for years, they're using with students to actually make a measured difference that we see from these two real students. This isn't internet fantasy land. This is real golf lessons with real people, real language that makes real changes to their swing. Let's show you how to strike the ball pure and get that Tour Pro impact position. So what we're trying to fix with this golfer is this poor impact position where their lower half kind of outruns trail half and we start getting these kind of crashes down at the bottom. So we're trying to get a little bit more balance between how they're pushing in the ground, where they're pushing in the ground, to get that more kind of lined up impact position that you see from better players rather than that kind of throw down and then that mess down at the bottom. And then in turn, what that will hopefully do for this student, and did, is it will allow them to strike the ball more consistently. Striking the golf ball more consistently will move the needle in your scores. Like, it's one of the benchmarks of what determines a better player and a worse player, believe it or not. You can see very many different club paths, different faces, different grips, different setups, but contact with ball on face and how you interact with the ground is completely needle shifting. Now, the guys at JD Golf Academy shifted the needle with this player. You can see the two actions are different down at impact. They transformed them, and these are the two drills they used. So number one, this player got up to the top of the backswing with not much space, so quite crumpled in at the top. And the way they were doing that is they would extend lead wrist. So lead wrist would basically go too much this way, which allows the club to get quite close because it allows it to kind of overhinge. So lead wrist bending this way too much, and then trail arm bending this way a lot, and trail wrist not bending this way much, so actually staying quite straight, creating these kind of quite buried in close positions. What that does for students when you get really close like this is it encourages a bounce back. So you get this kind of no space to space, but as you're creating this no space to space, for lots of golfers, their hips are still doing the agenda. They're still trying to go that way. They're not waiting for any of this mess to get tidied up or cleaned up at the back. So the hips outrun, lower half comes out, and then we're kind of out here. This is exaggeration, obviously, and they're creating these horrible impacts. So first drill, what we did, or what they did with this student, and I've used this for years with students, it really works well. We need to create that width, that space at the back. And there's two ways of doing that. You can be a lead arm golfer, so thinking about for me, my left, or you can be a trail arm golfer, or you could think of both, but usually golfers feel more comfortable thinking of one or the other. And believe me, I felt with both. Like, I've felt both over the years, but I don't feel both at the same time. I'm always focusing on one to affect the other. So if lead arm makes more sense to you, hold the club with your lead arm. So I'm just holding on with my left up the top of the grip here. Get your hand out of the way. And what I'm going to do is go top of the backswing. I'm going to try and keep my lead wrist flat with my lead arm. So I don't want to be cupping this wrist, as people call it, extending it, because that makes it feel like it can just flop. So I'm going to support the weight of that club with this kind of very straightened out angle between wrist and arm, while at the same time trying to create width, trying to push it away from me, trying to get it up into this corner, trying to stretch out here, not let it fold. Now, if that lights your lemon, if that's the one that gets you that width, use lead arm. If it's trail arm, you're going to have to think about extending trail wrist, so this way, and then in turn not bending trail arm too much. So now I've got my trail hand on, lead hand out of the way. I'm down the grip, because remember, your trail hand doesn't go at the top, it sits down the grip. Now what I'm going to do is go to the top of my backswing and stop. I'm going to feel like I don't bend this arm much. Again, I'm pushing it out, up and away from me, but I am going to extend, bend back, trail wrist, because this will allow club face control. If you don't, that's going to get the club face in a bit of a mess. So you are going to have to feel trail wrist starts to bend backwards, so going this way, extending, not this way, this way. Trail arm stays out of it. At the same time, I'm going to turn hips, going to turn shoulders to support, and I'm really going to create that width. Now, it doesn't matter which arm you are, like I say, whichever one allows us to create the width is going to give us a better chance now of not having bounce back, having more drop down, gets the club on a better path, and now a more of a link up of body. So really work that into your shots, extending on the way back, See what that does to your shots. You might find for some golfers, that puts all the boxes back in order. So what happens is we get them extended here and then they do start to line up. Their hips don't get carried away because they're not wasting the time doing bounce back at the top. But if you don't, if you get extension and you still find you don't strike it that well and you're kind of messy down at the bottom and hips are running away, this is a second drill. Some people call it the Tiger Woods drill because we've seen him talk about it and use it a lot. Also, we've seen people like Justin Rose use it as well. This drill's really good for syncing it up a little bit more. What we're going to do is try and get the arms feeling like now they've got that space at the top. We're actually going to pull the club, drop the club down into the space that you've created rather than the bounce back and have to run away to create space. Remember, we've got the extension on the way back, so we've now got some space, so we're going to try and drop it into that space. But as we do that, we don't want the lower body running out from underneath us. So great way of doing this. You've got your space at the top. What I'm going to do is just drop my arms down. You see, I'm just literally dropping my arms down, trying not to use my body. I might put a little bit of knee bend in there to feel like there's movement. Get my hands opposite trail leg, and then feel like I just kind of go through from there. A little bit of a pump and hit it. So I'm changing the sequence to be much more here, here, through, rather than here, this way through. Because when it comes to trying to get weight through, hit through the ball, all these phrases you would have heard, people think very two-dimensionally, so they think very much often in the horizontal, feeling like they're just going this way. And that's when we do see this out of sync downswing. You've got to remember, in the ground and how you use the ground, I got torque values I've had to increase mine because I was always very horizontal. You've got vertical values as well. All these as well as the horizontal. So these three forces, you can use them correctly to really tidy up how you strike. And this player trying to go so horizontally and leaving the club back, for lots of you watching, that's where the duffs are coming from. So the sinking of the arms more as a feeling like they're just dropping, then a turn. Don't worry if you don't feel like you're transferring weight. You are. Because as you do this, don't be afraid to try and feel that you're actually going this way with your hips as you do it. You just don't need to be sliding with your hips. So as I drop down, so as I pull down, I can feel the pressures really building up in my lead foot as I push in that foot as I drop down. And then when you get to about here, I'll start bouncing back, allowing everything to line up. So you're still getting the pressures really working in the ground. If you actually measured, you are transferring weight, don't worry about that. You're just doing it using other forces, which will feel different, might feel a bit abstract, but what will happen is your strikes will start to line up. You won't be back here. You'll be in here more coming through. Better strikes means lower scores. These two ideas worked for this student. Doesn't mean it works for all, but the beauty of coaching is that if you share what others learn, often you find other people learn the same way. Not always, but people are kind of in groups. And this is the beauty of these kind of lessons. Real lessons, not YouTube fake lessons. These are real improvements made by real pros using measured data to help you get better. Let me know if it helps. If you want to hit your driver better, try this video. It's got lots of great info.